Hello and welcome. In case you're wondering, I'm in a hotel room for a conference, and so I'm here in the room. But today, what we're going to talk about in our daily breakthroughs with Sunil, where every day is extraordinary, is how to get way more done with other people. And I'm going to take off my glasses so you can see me, and um, and how to do that with freedom, ease, and grace. And one of the um, biggest problems that people have is people want to do this. They want to do this with their families. They want to do this with their spouses. They want to do it with their team at business and at work. And yet, the main problem usually is when it comes to this bad word called accountability. Oh my God. Even when I say it, I can already feel people coming at me like, what are you talking about? Right? But accountability can be done very, very gracefully, very powerfully, with a lot of freedom. And if you master accountability in a graceful, effective way, you can get a lot done. And you can also specialize in what you love to do and have other people do the things that you don't want to do, especially if they enjoy doing that and you don't. It makes for a beautiful way of interacting. Human beings were designed to be social and to interact in a way that creates better results, bigger results, get out of big jams together as a unit. We're actually designed that way biologically and sociologically. So, what are the tricks here? I took some notes here. and so, what tends to happen, let me describe the problem and I'll give you some solutions. What tends to happen is when it comes to accountability, people either resist accountability, in other words, they don't want to do it, they don't want to hold their husband to account or their team to account, or they go the other extreme where they get really mad and self-righteous and they become the accountability police, right? And that doesn't work either. So there's a middle ground that's more powerful, where it's more flexible. The analogy I always use when I train corporate people is the following. The two ways that don't work, especially if you use the analogy of a tree, um, if you use the analogy of a tree, the trees that can survive hurricanes are the ones that are most flexible. The ones that are most rigid don't survive hurricanes. A coconut tree and a tree that has no structure to it is so weak and so chaotic doesn't survive either. But a tree that's flexible, like a coconut tree, can actually survive very strong winds. You may have seen very tall coconut trees, in some areas where you've been, and these trees have weathered a lot of storms. Okay, the reason is they have flexibility. So if you bring flexibility to accountability, things start working really well. So how do you do that? Well, flexibility has two components to it. One is it has an element of some strength to it. In other words, it has some structure. You got to provide some structure. If you don't have any structure, you're going to have chaos, right? So you have to put some structure into flexibility. The second is that you got to have, well, some leeway. Now, the leeway is not, that's probably not the best way to use it, but I think it's more like that you present options when it comes to accountability. If you only present no choice, like you got to follow my rule, it's too rigid, then it doesn't work either. So you got to present both the system and the structure, as well as the uh, flexibility of options. Okay, it's the best way I can put it. So, how do you do that? And more specifically, so when it comes to the structure, if you don't have clear promises with people, you're in for a really hard time because there's no concrete behind it. If if there are no clear promises between you and your husband, your team, or the people that you work with, you're setting yourself up for a big upset because you have expectations and they have different ones. This is what mostly happens for most people, right? Is when it comes to being accountable and holding other people to account. Both parties don't agree on what needs to get done. To agree on what needs to get done, you got to deal in the currency of promises. Promises are where your expectations become super clear. And a promise has to have two components. It has to have a deadline date, a time by which you'll accomplish something, The second thing is that something has to be so clear, so specific, so obviously measurable that there's no what I call mischief about it. It's very clear it got done. So preferably something that's measured. Okay, I'll get you at least 3 people that you're going to talk to about setting up your marriage ceremony next week, by the end of next week. That's a clear promise, right? So if you don't set it up that way, you're setting up for doom and failure. Um, and then you got to have a deadline date, a time by which it happens. So that's the structure part. If you don't put that in, everything doesn't work. It just stops working. It's in fact nonsensical, right? Um, on the other side of it, the flexibility part comes through communication. There are a couple of things that you got to learn. Firstly, you got to sell the idea of them getting this done on time. Now, you may say, well, why should I do that? She's my spouse or he's my husband. But the truth is, if you really want to get things, you got to learn the art and science of selling them on the idea of making a promise happen. And sometimes it's a selfish reason for them. Sometimes it's a selfish reason for you, but you got to learn the art and science of selling. So one quick way to do that is to figure out what's in it for them if they got that promise done on time. And, very often people want to do it because they just want to support you. So you want to be clear that, hey, this will really support me if you got this done on time and you give me updates on whether it's getting done and it's clear updates. Really support me and really help me. Can you work that way, right? Up to giving incentives. Hey, whatever works, right? And when it comes to the art and science of leadership, it equates to the art and science of how to set up incentives so they are cool. They're not monetary in nature all the time, and they're not, self-serving. It's really for the better good. And a lot of people do come from that context of wanting to do good for everyone. And so you got to really learn how to sell the accountability. The second thing is that you want to, I can't read my own handwriting. The second thing is you want to make concrete promises, like I said, in your communication. So make sure that they understand what they're promising to you and vice versa. The other thing is that you want to presence the partnership between you and that person. That means that you want to let them know, listen, this is a win-win situation. I want to make sure it wins for you and wins for you, wins for me. And you can always say from fairness and partnership is where I want this accountability to lie. So it works for both of us. So you want to make sure that it's a partnership. The third thing is you want to communicate in a way so that you can review the updates and the progress, the promise and the work that's being done, so that there are no surprises for you. So you're fully supported. If any breakdowns or problems occur, that you can recover and on time and still be satisfied. The worst thing is to find out last minute that nothing's happened and the other person hasn't done anything because they weren't clear about something or they didn't know what to do. So you got to review it with them, especially people who are not used to being accountable. The last thing is it's okay to fail. And you want to presence that okayness to fail because that presence is choice for people. The pressure arises from people and accountability because they don't have the experience of options. If they fail at it, they feel bad. So if you don't create like a safe space for them to come to you and say, I failed at this, what can we do to recover? If you get angry and you only say, well, this is the only way to do it, then it's going to be difficult to lead people. I'm not saying impossible, but very difficult to lead people. So those are some of the distinctions it takes to really lead and generate results and have other people do things. And the best thing about having that happen is you create a community and you create sweet memories if it's done right. Because doing something together, whether it's a wedding or getting your kids to do a project together, builds sweet memories. The question is, do you want to build horrible memories or sweet ones of accomplishment, going through some tough times together, but eventually working it out? I hope you have a great night and a great day. Talk to you soon. Take care. And if you like what you hear, definitely like our page. And that page is the Chahaya Mind News. Put it always in the bottom. So make sure you like that page. Not only like the comments, but like the page as well. And that will really support us. Look forward to serving you again, and take care and have a great day.